interesting, topic of monetization around AI. So commercialization, monetization, basically realizing commercial value from data and AI. And what it means is finding right opportunities for business to focus on, helping them manage data and AI as a business asset, helping them modernize their operating models from a traditional to more digital operating models, and also helping them scale digital business if they have one, or create if they don't. So most of the work is around what is commercial value, where do you find this commercial value, and most of the time about looking beyond technology and say, does it really even make sense to do this, right? And how do you prioritize? A lot of such initiatives, exciting work. And I think we work a lot on the intersection between AI and business. And I think that's where a lot of value potential is. So if you're interested in AI and making money, then I think that's where you should be. Thank you.
Louise.
Hi, my name is Louise Barnekow. I'm the CEO of Mynewsdesk. And Mynewsdesk is a PR and communication solution. We have been doing major investments in AI and data infrastructure for many years now, and I can talk for hours about that. But I primarily come from a product management background, and I've been working with data and AI for many, many years in different roles in companies.
We'll soon ask you a question, so you can hold on to the microphone actually. But I forgot to introduce myself, I think. My name is Victor Aberg. I am a Hyper Island alumni, just as you, Anita. And I work at a machine learning agency named Modeleye. We work with project consultants, and we have some joint ventures and products and things as well. So, yes. But let's get started. And for you at home, if you have any questions, and for the ones in the audience, we will have time in the end of the discussion to ask questions. So make sure to type them down in your phone or at a paper or something to save them for later. But we aim in having a discussion here and then questions for later. Okay, Louise. In your industry, what skills and roles do you think are the most needed? And what are some requirements that you think are most needed for a career in data and AI?
Well, since we are in the PR and communication industry, we work a lot with text. So for us, it's very relevant to be really skilled in NLP, natural language processing, but it's super important to also be into the discipline of the industry we're in, because it doesn't create value if you don't know the use case and what value you can give to the customers. So both being skilled in PR and communication combined with NLP, I would say, and information retrieval.
And do you manage to make any value out of the AI you are doing? We talked about it before.
Definitely. I mean, what's really important is what problems do we want to solve for our users? What is the greatest pain points in their daily life? And that needs to be the driver of what algorithms we want to build. And we see that having a close relationship with our customers really create that value. So because there's a variety and an ocean of opportunities to use AI, but it's not, if it doesn't create value, then it's useless. And in our case, the pain point is to understand what is being said about you in the media landscape. It's also about who should I target? If I write a press release, who's even interested in reading this press release? So to semantically read the press release and scan the whole internet, who would be possibly interested in reading this, and give that journalist or that stakeholder the name of that person to the PR communicator to send it to. So to match the journalist with our PR communicator. That is one use case, because that's a pain point for our customers.
Interesting. Andrea, what would you say in connection to this topic? Like what skills and roles do you see in where you work?
Yeah, I think you need to break that question down a little bit, because obviously, as someone said, it's when we say work in data and AI, it's so broad. So I think you need to start by breaking it down a little bit and understanding what do you want to work with. Do you want to work more towards the technical side, or do you want to work more towards the business side? Is a start to try and dismantle that. Since I come from the business side, I can mostly talk about that. And I think there it's a lot about, so when we're out and working with clients, and I primarily work with really large enterprises, it's a lot about helping them understand what value can you create by applying data and AI. So it's a lot about helping them see the business need for it, see the specific use cases that they can realize, but also understand what legacy systems do they have. So what does the infrastructure look like? How can they utilize what they already have? What do they need to have on top of that potentially? And of course, what data do they have? So it's a lot about being that, I think, being that bridge between the technology side and the business side. And that's, I think that's a sweet spot. So if you have at least the conceptual knowledge of the technology parts, and you understand the business side of things, you're in high demand on the labor market, because that's something that a lot of companies are really struggling with. Yeah, we can talk more about that, but
Yeah.
so wanna
Maybe I can talk about the technical side. Now the Andrea touched the business side. So from the technical side, so talking about data and AI, once again, it is a very broad concept, but I think that you need to have the same technical skills that you will apply to any field. It doesn't need, there are specific technicalities or skills that you need for AI, but you're going to still need programmers, front-end developers, back-end developers, database, data architects, etc. So there are many skills that you guys already have, that the only thing that you need to do is apply it to the AI field. That's one side. On the other side, from the business technological point of view, we can also think on the diversity point, because if you go back to your question, what are the skills, what are the experiences that you need to be on the data and AI, I will say that diversity is a big gap that we need to bring into this field. It's a new field, and as you mentioned, Louise, there is a lot of product, there is a lot of things that we are creating to our customers that have been used for many people. Those many people are not one kind. It's a variety, the people from different backgrounds. So are the technical points that you can transfer from different jobs, but also your soft skills and your own perspective are very valuable to bring into this field.
Thanks. Anyone like to build on that, or?
Yeah. So as you know, we work on the intersection of AI and everything else. I think one of the I segment this skill set into 4 basic groups. So the first group, with what we call is a digital business developers, and we need people who can identify opportunities for AI. What new business cases, what new business models, what new products and services we can create. That's one bucket. The second bucket is the business translators and product managers. So someone who can formulate a business problem into a data and AI problem, right? And then manage that as a product or as a service. That's the second group. The third group is we need AI change agents, basically people who can deploy AI into the business processes, into the operating models, and augment the decision intelligence, augment the processes, augment the workflows. And that really take, for example, what happens when you infuse AI into marketing or sales. The AI analyst, people who have who can conduct business experimentation, who can look at the outcome, who can measure the outcomes of AI in the real world. What kind of risk are we creating? What kind of compliance are we creating? And kind of build the metrics I think these four are roles I think are in great demand, primarily because we believe, I believe that in the next 4 to 5 years, the technology of AI is going to get stabilized and will get democratized. So the focus will very, very swiftly shift to the applications, and this is where I think you would like to be. And one of the most important thing I feel, requirements is fair, right? Is to have that experimental mindset. We don't want people who come. I mean, you understand that whatever you think or know about the business or a problem is just a hypothesis. Unless you can formulate it into a proper hypothesis, collect data, test it, prove it, take a decision, it doesn't really matter. So I think this, and then of course, as I said, domain expertise. We really have a big skill gap in terms of people understanding AI and business, and together what AI means for business. I think that's something which is really, really something that all of clients, if I give them like 100 people there, they're very, very happy to do that. That's I think the big gap. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
No, I really like your way of categorizing it. It's great, and I totally agree. And just to add on what we've been saying around domain-specific knowledge, something that we're seeing quite a lot also is that within really large organization, something that's happening now is that you're pushing out the responsibility for analytics and AI into the different business functions. So you're trying to achieve an enterprise-wide digital transformation. So you want to infuse data into all of the business functions: sales, marketing, supply, finance, etc. And so those functions are now going to have their own analytics and AI teams. There's still going to be some type of central capability who sets the governance around it and the central requirements. But you're gonna, as you were saying as well, you're gonna democratize the technology itself. And then if you have that function-specific domain knowledge, I think that's also really, really a key. So if you're really good at understanding, say, finance data, then that's something that's going to be extremely beneficial for many, many companies.
Building on to that, Anita, like in this very broad landscape, in all different domains and sectors, how can we stay relevant and up to date in a field that is so rapidly changing? And how do you do it, for instance, in your work space?
Well, first I come to events, kind of like this one. Is a good stuff, but it is quite hard. But there are things that you can do. I make sure I follow people on LinkedIn, for instance, who are speaking about different technologies. I do go to quite many events, conferences from different data technology companies, just to kind of get an understanding of what's out there. And also, it's a great opportunity to meet other people who are doing really cool things at other companies, giving you ideas. And also just reading, a lot of reading. I read a lot on Medium, and I follow different company blogs, like Netflix, for instance. They post a lot about what their engineering teams works on, what type of problems they're facing, and how they solve those types of problems. So just being out there, looking at different companies, what are they doing, following people who have really something interesting to say about the field, and also just keeping plugged into like what new tools are out there, what's coming. And I think it's gotten quite easier to do this kind of thing, but I think at the very beginning it might be quite overwhelming. So I would just follow people who you're interested in, topics that are important to you, because the skills that you learn you can apply to whatever industry, which is one of the wonderful things about working in tech, is that you could mostly work anywhere with the skill set that you gain. Yes.
Somil, or yeah,
Yeah.
Louise.
I do agree totally on that way of keeping up with what's happening. But I also asked our intelligence team at Mynewsdesk, how do you do it? And so it's so important just to reach out to other colleagues at other companies and ask them for feedback on the problem you want to solve. So to be open with the challenges you have and what you do, and share your knowledge, and have mentors at other companies is a great way of keeping up with what's happening.
Yeah, so it's a lot about having a learning mindset, I guess. And Somil, you are inspiring a lot of people, I've heard. So how are you
Yeah.
keeping up to date?
So I think it's a lot of reading, and I read like a bunch of stuff. I mean, right from short articles to even research papers, sometimes PhD thesis. Because what I've realized over time is that the academic foundation for integrating AI into business already exists. It does exist. There is a lot of research, and one of the hubs is Sweden. You take out the PhD thesis or master thesis of students who are doing their project work, and you really find a lot of great articles or work around distributed intelligence and new ways of working. It's really there. This is the hub. And a second thing which I do a lot is I focus not on what AI is, but more on the applications, the case studies, what kind of new products or services companies are creating, how are they using AI in their business. So that gives a lot of context and also helps me figure out, okay, if I get a problem like this, how would I typically approach it? And the third, which is very, very important in my opinion, is the peer-to-peer learning. I mean, nothing can beat that. And a large part of, because I came from very, very business focused background. The way I've learned a lot about data engineering and data science is because I interacted with people who are experts in these areas. So I have developed a lot of foundation from them. Only thing I'll say is that when you talk to people, don't just ask about what kind of shiny, cool AI they are building, but really ask about what is the problem that they're facing. How are you formulating the problem? The problem formulation is 90% of the work, and how they're solving it. I think that part, if you can fix it, you're from a career point of view, from your personal growth point of view, the value that you'll be creating, I think that will be immense. I believe.
Amazing. And how do you frame problems then?
I have my own framework.
Oh, you do?
that I have developed over almost last 5 to 8 years. So looking at a lot of different elements on what constitutes an operating model, and really kind of looking at different drivers of value, of cost, of risk, and try to frame it into a very strong commercial frame that helps us understand what is the problem, what will be the impact of that problem, what happens if we put AI into it, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of that work, and I come from a systems engineering background, right, control systems background. So a lot of that comes from my previous background on system analysis and systems engineering. I used a lot of that.
I have anyone can answer this one, but how do you think companies within this field are working with this learning when it comes to this field, or is there anything happening in the companies?
I can answer that one. We at my company, we're mostly now starting to train our business users on how they can access their own data, how they can actually gain value out of the reports, for instance, that we have, and trying to get more people to take ownership of the data that we have. So it does require a lot of work, but it can be done. And it actually does provide value to the business because they can then take actions much faster if they have some skill set that they can use in order to maybe lessen the load on us as the analysts. They don't have to wait for us to do something or build something. They can actually take actions much faster. So that's one way. And but it's also trial and error. So trying new things and as well, and gaining some type of feedback especially from the business side, I think is quite important. But yeah.
I think one of the things that we do is do a lot of design sprints, a lot of workshops with the clients. Because what happens is that when you bring people from data and business in the same room talking about the same problem, they get a common understanding, yes, but then it kind of forces them, especially the engineers of the team, to kind of abstract away from the technicalities and explain in a very, very simple way, what does this piece of code does? And also forces the business to figure out, okay, what do they do with that? And building this kind of, metaphors and a very simple illustration, I think that helps people understand AI in a much easily than to focus on, okay, this is insight and prediction and code. And I myself feel that abstraction, at least, and looking at the big picture, that's where you start creating change, because people start understanding it, they start feeling comfortable around it. That's what we need right now. Business is scared of AI. They're scared of losing control, right? So the AI, the control paradigm has to change. So that's something that we need to help them move forward.
I guess that I agree with you say of how companies are doing it, and in my experience from the last 3 companies that I have worked for, they had been programs where they join the technical part of the business with the business part of the business part of the organization, and they incentivize to learn more about AI. So everyone has kind of like a role when they are learning. If there is someone that is interested in learn, let's say, and I don't know, work with the data, then they get paired up with some data scientists or with some data analysts or something. But the main thing that I have seen in these companies is there is a space where that knowledge transfer, it is happening, because everyone has a point of view and everyone has someone that can afford to create this new application. So definitely I have seen it, and the companies play a big role to that.
Cool. Yeah. Throw it.
Yeah, maybe just addressing it from a slightly a different point of view. I think equally important as all of the things we've now discussed is actually including this into your business strategy. So those companies who are really successful in using AI and using data in their business, they're the ones who are actually pointing out in their strategy that data and AI is what's going to help us achieve a better profit. It's going to impact our top line, so it's going to help us grow. It is also going to impact our bottom line, so we're going to become more operationally efficient with that. Because what happens when you include it in your strategy like that is that you need to, or you start steering towards that. So you infuse it into your governance structure, and you really enforce this into all of the operations. And that's a way to take all of these initiatives that otherwise maybe would have just been on a voluntary basis, and actually saying that this is the direction that our company is going to go in, and we need to change with that. So I think it's a combination of having these really strong initiatives, but then also including that into your strategy and setting a governance around that.
I can add to the top line and EBIT targets. It's all because we have that in at Mynewsdesk. It's vital, the whole data science, data strategy for our both profitability and our growth going forward. But it's also vital for the engagement and inspiration to attract talents, because that is what builds companies. And I think that is the major effect, actually, that people get super inspired to work with AI, and the power when they realize the power and the insights they can get. So it's very important from a people perspective as well.
Yeah. Okay, Liliana, I have a question to you now. What made a big difference in your career, maybe life, to arrive where you're at today?
Would it make a big difference to come to the point where I am today? Let's say that it has been kind of like a combination of many things. It's not one thing. I will say that to come to the point where I am right now, like I'm a solutions engineer, that is a role that I really enjoy. I started with solutions engineer for maybe more than 10 years ago, and I was working in something else. I was like an analyst. I was a PM in the past, but when I realized that in the company where I was, there was a team working with customers, solving challenges. They were running all the time, using the latest of the technology. I was like, I want to be in that team. But I knew that I have things that I had missing things. So for me, it has been a combination of curiosity, passion, and maybe daring to put myself forward, daring to ask. So what happened back then, it was that I knew that I had maybe the background, but once again, it's only one part of the whole role. So I just approached the manager and I said, well, I really like, first I approached someone from the team. I think, Louise, you mentioned that. Talking to some people that are already in the roles that you're interested and ask, how is your day today? So I approached one person from that team and I say, I would like to be like you. How has been your path to he was? And he explained it. Then I approached the manager. And then it was, okay, you need to do this. And I didn't even spoke the language. I was here in Sweden, etc. But the fact that I was very passionate about that role and I was curious about reaching different people to know what was missing for me to be part of that team. And then being able to go in, of course, learn Swedish. I wanted to maybe sharpen up my skills on that specific technology. It brought me to the other side of the solutions engineering field that I really enjoyed. So that will be something that it has worked for me. Sometimes you need to be prepared that you're going to fail, but take those roadblocks and those rejections as an opportunities to find yourself. Where are these gaps that you still have and how you can fill them? And how you fill them, once again, is that curiosity. Connecting to Anita, reach out to people that are in the network that you're interested in. Follow some people, sign up for webinars, sign up for so many amazing material that we need to thank to the pandemic, that it has been put a lot of stuff online. So I will say that combination, it will be a good combination to reach the goal. And don't forget that it's not only the destination, it's also the journey. Everything that you are learning along the way.
Do you have anyone else that want to share something that made a big difference in your career?
I have to agree with you. I think for me, learning from others who have the skill that you're learning has, for me, been a huge game changer. It really helps you to push your skill set a bit. So, and people are very interested in helping. If you just say, I need help, people will be very open to helping you. And that is really, I think it's quite hard to ask for help. But I think if you are really want to learn something much faster, I think learning from someone else who's really good at something really will help push yourself and push your skills. So definitely reach out to people, ask for help, and you'll be surprised at the response.
Do we have any clear tips? Like, that's very clear in like reaching out. Do we have any other tips in reaching your destination or goal? Or
maybe not so much a personal reflection, but just a reflection. I think sorry, I was thinking at the same time that I was supposed to speak. No, but so AI is a technology that's been around for a really long time, but it's just now that companies are actually starting to mature their AI capabilities. Most companies are still quite immature. Spoiler alert. But everyone is basically starting out, which means that I think as someone who wants to go into that field, you need to help those companies a little bit. You need to help them explain how you will add value to their business. So if you're approaching IKEA or H&M or any other, Swedish big organization or global organization, you need to help them understand what type of value you will add, because they don't necessarily know what types of skills and what types of personas they're looking for. Something that we're seeing quite a lot is that, so when I work with my clients, they don't really know what types of persons to recruit. They think they need a business analyst. That's what they always say. Oh, let's just hire a business analyst. And we're saying that, but wait, do you actually know who you want to hire? And there I think you can have a great impact if you have a good story of what skills do you have, what knowledge do you have, and how will you contribute to that business. Then you can do quite a lot. So think a lot about that. Try and build a narrative of how you're specifically adding value to that business that you want to work for, and you'll see that they will buy that because they need some help also in understanding their own needs.
So being relevant, kind of. Yep.
It's a very good point because there's a lot of immaturity in this area, definitely. A very concrete tips, but what I did was when I worked at Schibsted, there was a guy who did his master thesis. So to be picky on what kind of company would you like to do your master thesis with, because after that I directly recruited him. So that's a good way of getting into a company and see if that's a culture that I would like to be part of.
Just one reflection, one of the things which I think really made a difference was to ask a lot of whys, to the extent of sometimes even, people got frustrated, but that's okay. Because we think that businesses are built on very super engineered processes and this and that, but most of it is actually a lot of guesswork, a lot of heuristics, and a lot of assumptions. And why we are seeing the change in the economics, in the sociology and psychology, because a lot of those assumptions do not hold any ground anymore. They have changed fundamentally. You keep asking the question, understanding why are we doing the things the way we are doing, you will realize that that's where you start finding value. Because I have this conversation, how do you think the business works? How do you think the company makes money? A lot of people are not able to answer that simple question, even working there for like 10, 20 years. Even when we ask for them, they're not always very sure, and that may not be very correct. So asking why you're doing something, right? Rather than taking simply an input from just because someone is working in a business for many years, right? It doesn't matter if they really understand how it works. Why are customers buying from you? Why your product is selling? Why are you distributing the way you're distributing? Why are you pricing whatever you're pricing? Asking these questions, you start finding the value for AI, because AI is actually looking at all those gaps, all those assumptions that have changed, and that's where you find value, in my opinion. So just adding on to what Adrian said, if you want to prove value, and if you want to prepare for an interview, start taking their operating model apart. Okay, don't tell them I said that, but start taking their operating model apart. You will find areas where they can improve, and go with that as a pitch and say, you know what, you are doing this, but is that the best way to do it? How about I have a look at it and tell you if there's a better way to do it? I think that's what I would like to say.
Amazing. We're gonna bring in the audience actually, and thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and experiences. Time for questions and answers. Is there anyone in the room here that feel that you have a question written down? And then we make sure that you will have a mic. Adrian is the mic guy. And also, if you're at home and you have questions, type them in the chat, and we'll make sure to bring them up.
Hello. So I have a question for Louise and one for Mr. Gupta. And it relates also to what Andrea was saying previously. And perhaps you on the stage will have an answer, or perhaps somebody at home will have an answer. So my name is Sebastian Hellman. I'm the founder of a trading company. We trade the public markets. And Louise, you are, of course, the CEO of a PR firm. And we would like to trade press releases straight from when they are released to making the trades in the markets. And we are in a $1 trillion industry. We trade derivatives. So we could trade, do about 1 trillion of business per year now, but we would like to make a little bit 1 trillion. So do you have any idea of how we can be able to act on PR releases faster than others?
I guess we need a mic.
I think we should have a meeting, Sebastian, you and me. Lots of opportunities.
Okay.
All right. Trade on you want to buy and sell images based on. And how do you, what kind of images are you talking about? Okay. No, all right. That's no, yeah. I mean, see, okay, some part of that has to go with technology. I mean, that's not really my domain. But what I would suggest is start figuring out, first of all, is there really a market need? What do you aim to achieve by doing that? Do you want to achieve higher efficiency? Do you think you can price better? What is the business case that, because this probably looks like you might have to invest some money before you invest your first SEK or your first euro. Why don't you think about, imagine if that already exists for you. Imagine such a technology is there, and imagine that you can already deploy it. How would you start working with it? Try to prototype and see in your team if you are able to, if you have a system that says, okay, this image gives an output XYZ. What would a trader do with that XYZ? What does it help them deliver? Because what you're saying right now, it could be a good business case, but it could also be an assumption, right? So I think the first thing that I would really recommend that you validate is that is there really a business case for this? Because there's no point doing through all the hard work. And let's say, imagine if that technology is possible. Everything is possible if you have the right kind of money, seriously. But are you willing to invest that money, and will it pay off? So that hypothesis that you have, you can test that. And I really strongly say that you test that before you invest in a single SEK on technology.
Cool. We have one online question.
So this is a question from Emily. And she says, as a student with a small network, do you have any tips on how to find companies that are well established in the AI field in Stockholm? Any specific forums, conferences, or other things that you would recommend to go to?
Well,
I think you'll have to do a lot of Googling and a lot of stalking, perhaps on LinkedIn, to try to figure out who you need to speak to. Yeah, but I would definitely just sign up for some events. Go sign up as well for different tools. I think there's a lot now happening in different, like a Slack channel, for instance, for in the Slack channel for, say, DBT, which is a tool that we use for building our data models. And there's a lot of people all over who are in those channels for different tools, Snowflake, for any tool that you can think of that works with tech. Just get involved online. Stack Overflow, oh my gosh, it's just amazing what you can just kind of who you can reach through these different channels where you can just reach out to people directly. So yeah, so a lot of Googling and a lot of stalking is in order, and just reaching out to people. If you even have a small network, those people in your network know other people as well. So make sure you're transparent and open with people. Let them know what you're looking for, because there's someone out there that can connect you with someone else. So don't hide in a corner. You have to kind of put yourself out there as well and let people know what you want and what you're looking for.
Yeah. And I agree. And to to tie back to what we talked about before, also ask for help and reach out to people. I think there's so many great communities out there, like AI Think Tech, for instance, or Women in AI. There are a lot of communities out there. So some Googling will lead you to good places. Are we anything else online? Tab.
Thanks. Wait, did I stand up? It doesn't matter. Yeah, so I'd say maybe I have this question from something you said, Anita, but I have a feeling Andrea might be up your alley as well. Was it, do you all envision there will be any issues within compliance within the democratization of data with users being given access to personal data that they aren't authorized for? Or what's data governance look like in the future?
Okay, I'll go first, I guess. So you have time to think. I think it can vary from company to company. I had worked in banking where data governance is very strict on customer data. So you, as the analyst, you don't have access to anyone's personal information or personal identifying information, just the basics. Whereas other companies, maybe at a startup, for instance, you have access to everything and you can see someone's credit card. So there has been a lot of talk about privacy and regulation, and I think it does vary from company to company currently, but I think it's going to be, unless something bad happens, a company might not take that part seriously. But I think you have some companies that are very strict, like banking, and then you have some, the complete opposite extreme, where tech startups, where they might not be super compliant on that kind of thing. But I think the future is going to be definitely more compliance with data, especially in the EU, where it's a lot of governance happening. So there are companies talking about this right now somewhere, and they're trying to figure it out. But it is a lot of guesswork. There's no no like final answer that anyone is answering. People are just trying to do the best they can and try to not get in the crosshairs of the regulators. That's what's happening.
Yeah, this is my favorite topic. No, but I totally agree with what you said. It's there's no silver bullet. A lot of companies are approaching this differently, but what I'd say is that when you're on a data democratization journey, typically the way you do it isn't that you open up your source systems for anyone to access. Typically, what you do is that you put say data as an asset or data as a product on some type of common marketplace. So it's like you go shopping for data internally. And a good thing about structuring like that is that you need to do some homework before you do that. So you need to start with understanding what data do we have and how should we define our data products. And as a result of that, you can also get a better overview of what data is sensitive. So what data should we put strict access controls on, and what data is not? What data can we simply just let people access? So there are say underlying assumptions with the overall trend of pushing out data into the organization that kind of goes hand in hand with ensuring ethics, ensuring compliance. And this is a question that's at the top of at least the larger companies' agendas, because we know that if you do not comply to data protection regulation, that is going to hit you and have a huge impact on your financial performance. So yeah, companies are approaching it a bit differently, but it's definitely something that many are thinking hard about and doing a lot of heavy lifting.
I can just mention that in some of the customers that I had worked in the past, one way that they have gone just to make in the safe side is that they have taking a step of anonymizing the data. So they don't want to restrict, because you can find the both angles. You can find the very free, open-minded companies that they just open the databases to everyone, but also the ones that they don't want to do absolutely anything because they're very afraid to the data inspections or the not being compliant. So something that I have seen that they have done, that they don't want to stop the innovation within the companies, is that, okay, we're going to open them, but we're going to make sure that all these PAI is being is being removed, but still the database is going to be useful to do some building, some POCs, so just to get these people that want to work with the data, hands-on data, because you can do as much with public data, but it's nothing that it will beat the real data that the company produces.
I think we have time for one more question. Or I know that we have.
Hello. So I guess this is about like your guys' personal journey. I'm curious, how many of you have struggled or still struggling with listening to clients or partners? Do you think that there's sometimes people are talking too much, or do you think you should listen to them more? Do you find like there's like a particular balance when it comes to listening? I'm curious to hear your guys' journey.
This is a really nice question. Personal question from my position, sales engineer, because my role is to listen to the customer. So if they want to talk the whole hour, lovely. I'm there to listen. So for me, that's kind of like the goal information for me to understand what are the pain points, what are they complaining about, how the organization is structured. So for me, if the customer is talking the whole time, it's just Christmas for me. So I don't know for the rest of the panelists, but yeah, for me, I never will stop them. Of course, if I have another meeting, yes, I have to. But otherwise, I just take another notes, gather my key takeaways from the meeting, and then we just continue from what was said.
So, I mean, I have kind of participated in a meeting where like 3 hours I was absolutely silent throughout the meetings. That also happens, and I think that's kind of the gold mine. What I think would help you is we have there like a lot of different types of questioning techniques. So you have open questions, closed questions, exploratory questions. Employ, I mean, there's a book on how to ask the right questions, because the questions really drive the conversations. And most of my sales pitch is usually in the questions. It's like you ask a good question and people understand where you're coming from, right? So I think questions are a great way to balance. Of course, what you don't want is to filter out unnecessary information and help the person focus on the right part. So gently guiding them, nudging them through different questions, taking, and I kind of keep it very kind of dynamic, right? So sometimes if you want to explore, probe more, then you ask a more qualifying, more kind of in a question that pushes them to give more details. But sometimes you want to take a step back and say, okay, what is the big picture? Sometimes you say, look at the adjacencies. Sometimes you you have to move around and understand that. More dimensions you're able to capture. It will also kind of keep it interesting for you, because then you don't you are getting this, because you are in control of the conversation. The person who asked the question is always in the control of conversation. And you can even convert that listening into a more active form of listening. I think that has been sometimes, people, sometimes they don't realize, but they solve their own problems just in the conversations. And that's how therapy works.
Yeah. Final words.
I can add to that also that it's super important to listen, but also to listen to the different personas in your customer base, so that you get a variety and the full picture of your different customers' problems that you're solving, because there's not one solution. Often there's a tiering of different kind of customer personas in your customer base. So you need to keep track on that, so you help the right personas with the right problems.
Thank you. If I were you, I would take some time in reflecting if you have any learnings from today, and taking those learnings into action. So maybe there's something that you can do based on what you've learned today, or based on the insights that have been shared. I think that's always good. Again, big thanks to all of you taking your time to share this hour with us. For the ones in this room, there is some really nice wraps and some drinks, which Mynewsdesk brought to us. So big thanks for that. Thank you for being with us online as well. Yeah, special also thanks to the AI think tank crew for making this happen, and Women in AI as well. I know that if you want to sign up for the next one, and Reactor, of course, like the space we're in. Erika, thank you, and Corey. But if you want to sign up for the next one, make sure to, I don't know if we have the QR code online, but you can connect with the AI think tank crew if you want to join the next event. Big applause to you.